You ever notice how at some point in your 30s, you start looking around at the people you went to school with, the people you started your career alongside, and you realize something kind of unsettling? Like you all started from roughly the same place, give or take. Similar educations, similar entry-level jobs, similar student loan debt. But now at 35, some of them are buying houses, taking nice vacations, talking about retirement accounts like it's no big deal. And others, maybe you're in this group, I don't know, are still living paycheck to paycheck, still stressed about money, still feeling like they're one emergency away from financial disaster. And the weird part is, it's not always the people you'd expect. It's not like the rich ones all became doctors or tech entrepreneurs. Some of them have pretty ordinary jobs. And it's not like the broke ones are lazy or stupid. They're working hard, sometimes harder than the people who seem to have it all figured out. So what happened? Where did the paths diverge? My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human behavior, and why two people can start from the same place and end up in completely different financial realities by 35. And what I've learned, honestly, is that it's not about one big decision. It's not about getting lucky or choosing the right career or inheriting money. It comes down to something much smaller, much more invisible, but also much more powerful. It comes down to a handful of habits and perspectives that compound over time, that either work for you or against you, usually without you even noticing until it's been a decade. And today I want to walk you through what actually separates the financially comfortable 35-year-old from the financially struggling one. Not to make anyone feel bad, but because understanding this might be the thing that changes your trajectory. Because here's the good news. If you understand what's really happening, you can change it. It's not too late. It's actually never too late, but 35 is this interesting age where you still have decades to course correct, but you also can't afford to waste those decades making the same mistakes. So let's talk about what really makes the difference. The income trap nobody talks about. The first thing people assume is that the rich 35-year-old makes more money than the broke one. And sometimes that's true, but honestly, not as often as you'd think. I know people making six figures who are broke, and I know people making $60,000 a year who are building serious wealth. So income is part of the equation, sure, but it's not the whole story. The real difference is what they do with what they make. The broke person, no matter how much they earn, tends to spend everything. Sometimes more than everything, which is where credit card debt comes in. They get a raise, and their lifestyle immediately expands to match it. Nicer apartment, newer car, more expensive restaurants. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it's incredibly common. Because it feels good. You worked hard. You got promoted. You deserve to enjoy it, right? But the wealthy person at 35, they did something different. When they got raises, they kept living like they made less. Not forever, not miserably, but for long enough that the gap between what they earned and what they spent could grow into something meaningful. That gap became savings. That gap became investments. That gap became options. And here's the thing that's hard to accept. This happened over years. It wasn't dramatic. The broke person didn't feel broke at 27 or 29. They felt fine, actually. They were enjoying life, treating themselves, keeping up with their friends. But the wealthy person was making tiny sacrifices that didn't feel like sacrifices at the time. They were driving their car an extra 3 years. They were packing lunch instead of buying it. They were saying no to some trips, some purchases, some immediate gratification. And nobody noticed. That's what makes this so insidious. The decisions that lead to wealth at 35 are invisible at 25. They're boring. They don't make good stories, but they compound. The power of starting early, even when you didn't. The wealthy 35-year-old usually started investing in their 20s. Not a lot, often. Sometimes just $100 or $200 a month, but they started and they kept going, and they never touched it. The broke 35-year-old meant to start investing. They read articles about it. They knew they should, but there was always something else. Student loans, rent, That vacation they really needed, the car repair, the wedding gift, there was always a reason to wait. I'll start when I make more money, they told themselves. I'll start when things settle down. But things never settle down. And making more money doesn't automatically create the habit of investing. In fact, it often makes it worse. Because now you have more money to spend on lifestyle instead of investing. Let me give you some numbers because this is where it gets really real. If you invest $200 a month starting at 25, and it grows at an average of 8% per year, by 35 you'd have about $37,000. Not life-changing, but it's something. More importantly, it's momentum. It's proof that this works. It's a foundation. But the broke 35-year-old has zero. Or worse, they have negative money because they're carrying credit card debt from all those things they bought instead of investing. And I know what you might be thinking, but Nick, I'm already 35, or close to it, so this doesn't apply to me. Here's the thing, though. It's the same principle whether you're 25, 35, or 45. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. If you're 35 and you start investing $200 a month now, by 45, you'll have that $37,000. By 55, you'll have over $120,000. By 65, you'll have over $350,000. That's real money. That's retirement. But you have to start. That's the difference. The wealthy person at 35 started. The broke person at 35 is still waiting for the perfect time, the debt divide. Here's another huge one, debt. At 35, the wealthy person either has no debt or they only have good debt like a mortgage on a house that's appreciating. The broke person has car loans, credit card balances, maybe even payday loans, and they've had these for years. The wealthy person treated debt like fire, useful in very specific circumstances, but dangerous and something to be eliminated as quickly as possible. They paid off their credit cards every month. They avoided financing things that lose value. They made extra payments on their student loans. The broke person treated debt like a tool for lifestyle. They financed furniture, cars, vacations. They carried balances because the minimum payment was manageable. They didn't think about the interest adding up month after month, year after year. And the psychological weight of debt. That's something people don't talk about enough. The broke 35-year-old is stressed constantly. They're checking their account before making purchases. They're juggling due dates. They're losing sleep over money. That stress affects everything: their health, their relationships, their ability to take risks in their career because they can't afford to lose their paycheck. The wealthy 35-year-old sleeps better. They have breathing room. They can say no to a toxic job because they have savings to fall back on. They can invest in themselves, take a class, start a side business, because they're not drowning in minimum payments. The social pressure test. Here's something nobody wants to admit. A huge part of being broke at 35 comes down to caring too much about what other people think. Your friends are going to an expensive restaurant, so you go even though you can't afford it. Your coworkers are buying new cars, so you feel like your car is embarrassing even though it runs fine. Your Instagram feed is full of people on vacation, so you book a trip you can't afford because you don't want to feel left out. The wealthy person at 35 learned to care less, not in a cruel way, but in a self-preserving way. They learned that nobody actually cares what car you drive or where you went on vacation as much as you think they do. And the people who do care that much, they're probably broke too because they're also playing the appearance game. I remember this moment in my late 20s where I realized that the people I was trying to impress with my spending weren't even paying attention. And the people whose opinions I actually valued, they respected me more when I was honest about my financial limitations. I'm trying to save money this year is a perfectly acceptable thing to say. Most people will respect that. But the broke person can't say it. They'd rather spend money they don't have than admit they're being intentional with their finances. And that pride, that need to keep up appearances, It cost tens of thousands of dollars over the years. The knowledge gap. The wealthy 35-year-old spent their 20s learning about money. They read books, listened to podcasts, asked questions. They learned about index funds, Roth IRAs, compound interest, tax optimization. Not because they're smarter, but because they were curious and they took action on what they learned. The broke 35-year-old avoided learning about money because it felt overwhelming or boring or depressing. They stayed in their comfort zone. And because they didn't learn, they made expensive mistakes. They kept money in savings accounts, earning 0.01% instead of investing it. They didn't max out their employer's 401k match, which is literally free money. They bought whole life insurance when they needed term. They made financial decisions based on what seemed right instead of what actually was right. And here's the thing about financial knowledge. It compounds too. Once you understand how index funds work, you can't unlearn it. Once you see the power of compound interest, it changes how you think about every dollar. The wealthy person at 35 has a decade of financial knowledge built up. The broke person is still at square one. Conclusion. So when you look at the difference between the rich 35-year-old and the broke 35-year-old, it really does come down to this: small, consistent decisions made over 10 years. Living below your means instead of at or above them. Investing early and consistently instead of waiting. Eliminating debt instead of accumulating it. Ignoring social pressure instead of trying to keep up. Learning about money instead of avoiding it. None of these things are dramatic. None of them make for exciting stories. You can't post on social media about the vacation you didn't take or the car you didn't buy. But that's exactly why they work. They're invisible acts of discipline that compound into visible wealth. And if you're sitting here at 35 or close to it, feeling more like the broke person than the wealthy one, I need you to hear this. It's not too late. The same principles that would have worked in your 20s will work now. You just have to start. You have to decide that you're going to spend less than you earn and invest the difference. You're going to eliminate debt as aggressively as possible. You're going to stop caring what other people think about your financial choices. You're going to learn about money even though it feels uncomfortable at first. Because here's what I've learned watching people transform their finances. The difference between broke and wealthy isn't talent or luck or even income. It's willingness. Are you willing to be intentional? Are you willing to delay gratification? Are you willing to do boring things consistently? If you are, everything changes. Not overnight, but over years. And 10 years from now, at 45, you could be the person that other people look at wondering, how did they get so far ahead? And you'll know the answer. It wasn't one big thing. It was 1,000 small things done consistently that nobody noticed at the time. The choice, like it always has been, is yours.